I was just telling my mother the other day that I had somehow miraculously escaped all of the holiday sickness that was going around. Everybody I knew was getting sick, but somehow, even though my husband was sick, I managed to not get sick myself. Ironically, that evening, just a few hours later, I started to feel it coming on. So, I am sick. Because I'm sick, I've been drinking a lot of tea. I have this glass teapot that I got recently that I quite like. Here's what I've been drinking a bunch of tea out of lately. It's a glass teapot. I don't actually know how much it holds, but it seems like it holds several cups worth, which suits my needs as far as being able to fill several like traditional English style teacups with, which is what I was looking for. And it holds a whole bunch of tea for one person to be drinking throughout the day. The problem is that it starts to cool down really fast because it's glass. Glass tends to cool down pretty quickly. It doesn't retain a whole lot of heat. So my thought was that I should knit like a little sweater to put over the teapot, because maybe that'll help, but also because I just kind of want to. So I think that's what we're gonna do today. The cup that I'm using today is this nice little handmade one I got years ago from a little local shop. I like these sort of cups that are handleless. I can use these for my various Asian style teas if I want to. Technically it's big enough that I could brew in it, but I never do that. I use a teapot. The first thing to do is to develop a pattern. That means we need to take some measurements and do some math. Here's the basic shape of what I have. It's not exact and it's not to scale. I don't think it really matters. I have this idea that if I have the length that is like the height that I need going this way, and then the max width going this way, and then the minimum width up here and down here actually that I need, then it doesn't really matter. I can kind of adjust things as I go and sort of figure it out. So I'll keep trying it on and testing it out and adjusting. And it should probably work out just fine. So let's take some measurements. We need the total height. We need the max width, minimum width. Those both start with M. And we need gauge. So here's what I plan to do as far as the shape of it goes. I'm going to leave an opening in here, well actually this way, so that it can slide over the handle. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to leave an opening around the spout as well. I might pick up stitches kind of like a gusset, since this teapot doesn't drip really at all, which is pretty remarkable. I could do this without it making a mess, so I might consider doing that. But really, if I'd want to keep it simple, I feel like that'll be fine and I won't need to do it. What this means is that the handle actually is much higher than the opening of the spout over here. So this opening I anticipate needing to be much taller than this one will, which means I'm gonna start out probably in the round, and then once I get to where the opening needs to be for the handle, I'm gonna have to start, ooh, I could steek it. Should I steek an opening? Is that a bad idea? I'll think about it. I might. Either that, or I'm going to start going back and forth. And then once we get to here, we'll bind off a few stitches up here, and then it'll be like a front panel and a back panel until we join it again at the bottom somehow. either leaving an opening with like a button close or something, probably, which one's higher? Well, they kind of actually ended about the same point. I have some choices. Lots of options. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do yet. I'll feel it out, and if it's not working, then I'll just like steek it or something and pick up stitches. Who cares? All right. I measured the spout width. Actually, that's another. The spout width is 1.5 inches, because that's kind of something you can't really wrap around it. And then I don't think this needs to be too specific. 15.25, and then with the spout, 16.75 inches. So there's my width. Let's do minimum width. Oh, I picked the wrong side. Did I mention I'm sick? Let's be honest though, I wouldn't be performing much better if I wasn't, frankly. Okay, that is right at about 8.75 inches. Right, wait, I'm sick, let's check again. All right, so that's a difference of 8 inches in diameter. Interesting. Okay, height. And that's height for however tall I plan to actually make it. So if I wrap it around this way, probably doesn't need to actually go all the way to the bottom because it'll kind of bump up against whatever. So it kind of looks like maybe 3 inches, 3.75 inches, something like that. Okay, everything's got a 75 attached to it. That's fun and exciting and annoying. And then the halfway point for that is 1.875, according to the voice assistant, who I trust more than my own math. The other things I'll figure out, like how wide, how many stitches I need to bind off for here. Well, I guess I could. You know what, we'll go ahead and do it. 9/16 of an inch. It's like 1.5 centimeters wide. I'm sure that won't be a problem later on. 9/16 of an inch. That's stupid. Okay, so I've got my measurements for the teapot itself, and I've thought a little bit about the shape that I'm going to make it. I should consider color choices and yarn choice. Let's move on to that then. Okay, for yarn choices, I have a few things in mind. Some of these things behind me have a specific purpose. And so there's a dog in my way. And so they're not really something I'm going to consider. I considered using some fisherman's wool, which I have some of. I quite like fisherman's wool. I've made a few sweaters with it, as well as what I've been calling foot sweaters, which are basically just really, well, worsted weight socks that don't really fit in boots, but I like to wear them around the house. So really house socks, but I like to call them foot sweaters. This isn't important. But I like using that one, and my needles are currently set up at the right size that I could use for that. However, I kind of have an idea that I might like to use some hand spun. So let me show you what I have for that. Here's some options that I've been thinking of. So we have, they're both raw wool, both hand spun. The white one is from my first wool fleece that I bought last year, that I washed and processed and all that myself. I've been using my hand spindles, specifically the little spindle sticks with a removable whirl, which is kind of like my favorite way to spin right now. So I've got a bunch of these little fluffy mini skeins. It's like you could say it is a woolen spun. It's very fluffy. It's Montedale, which has a lot of crimp to it. It had a lot of canary staining on it, so it came out not being white like I might have liked. It's kind of more like a cream, but I think that would look good with this orange. I don't even know what this wool is. It was some stuff that was donated to the fiber guild that I go to. We were doing like a worsted versus woolen spinning study that day. And this one, I kind of separated the colors when I carded it so that it had like some yellow bits and then orange bits and red bits, and some of them kind of like barber pulled together. Both of these are 2-ply. And probably just kind of looking at it, I feel like they're close enough in size that I could probably use these two together with like some color work or something. So I think that's what I want to do as opposed to the fisherman's wool. I guess the only thing is I'm going to have to figure out what needle size I want for these. It doesn't look like I'm going to want to be using a really small size, so maybe I can still use the circulars. But I don't know. We'll do a gauge swatch and see. I don't think I mentioned what tea I'm drinking today. This is just peppermint tea. I think it's the Celestial Seasonings. At this point, it is cold. But that's okay, because it's just an herbal tea anyway. Okay, so I caked up those 2 mini skeins. I kind of wish that I had recorded skeining this one because it has so many fun colors in it. It was just fun to watch it skein up. There's like this barber pole section. You can't see it. There's this barber pole section where it's like I think it's the dark and the light together. And then there's a section where there's just the dark, and it was just cool to watch it skein up, but oh well. I took a look at the yarn compared to other yarns that I've worked with, and I guess that I would probably want a size 2 needle. And I feel pretty good about that choice. I like the way that this looks. The fiber is definitely different, but the thickness of each of them is close enough that I think it'll work out just fine. The orange probably is thicker in that it has more fibers in each strand, as opposed to the Monsdale, which is quite airy, but it works out to be close enough that, I don't know, who cares? I don't think it'll matter at all, really. The orange turned out really nice in this particular section. It's just real pretty, but I like the colors together, and I like the look of the fabric that I've created. So let's measure for gauge. They say you should make a 4x4 square when measuring for gauge, but like, I'm not gonna follow the rules. I'm sick. I don't care. I'm gonna do whatever I want. It looks like the swatch I made actually is about 4 inches. It's about 6 stitches per inch, but I'm gonna measure more just to check. Yeah, it just works out to be about 6 stitches per inch. Okay, and then row gauge, which matters a little bit less, but you know, we're here, we may as well take that information anyway, why not? Okay, so there's my gauge. At a size 2, which is 2.75 millimeters, we have 6 stitches per 1 inch and 9 rows per 1 inch. So using that, we can do some math and figure out the general size that we need this to end up as far as stitch counts go. Some people like to keep their swatches. I like to use every bit of yarn that I can. I don't know, maybe I'm kind of weird about wasting material, I guess. So I'm 100% going to unravel this gauge swatch and work this into the teapot cozy itself. So this won't stay like this for long. My pencil, let's start out with the widest width, 16 3/4 inch by 6 inches, 100.5 stitches. 8.75 times 6 is 52.5. 3.75 times the row gauge, which is 9, is 33.75. And of course, we can't do fractions of rows and stitches because that's not how this works out. They have to be a full number. So I'll probably either round down or I'll round up depending on how it's looking and whatever my color pattern asks for, or however I feel like, because I'm gonna do whatever I want. So I want to do color work of some kind. Because I'm sick, it makes sense to do something easy. But like, I kind of feel like adding a little bit of color work to it because it's been a little while. So here's kind of some options I thought I might try. Here is a sock that I tried to do in July as my very first color work project. It's sock yarn. I made this all up and it's not good, but I kept it, just the one sock, so that I can use it to reference, and also because it's a learning experience. I was looking at these and I kind of like, if you can even see it, I don't even know. I kind of like this sort of pattern, how this works out. Just little checks and diagonals. I've done something similar on my little foot sweaters I was talking about earlier. I just kind of like this sort of really simple color work pattern. But if I feel like doing something more challenging and stupid, I guess, I could revisit these crabs, because I do like this is even like a good one. But like, I kind of like the little crabby guys. Can you see these little guys? These guys are kind of fun. And I mean, look at it. Wait, where did it go? We've got orange and white. That could be fun as crabs. I kind of like the idea, except for then I'm gonna have to pay attention. The clear, better choice, I think, is to do something simpler. But I kind of want to have some crabs in there. Maybe I'll do like one row of little guys, and then maybe like some kind of zigzag check pattern. I was kind of thinking I would do like orange, starting orange, because I have a lot less orange. Maybe I would do orange at the top and then transition to white a little bit, and then do something maybe with crabs underneath. I mean, it's just yarn. If anything, I can unravel it and I can try something else if it's not working out. This is not going to be a one afternoon project, but I guess that's fine. Because I'm sick, I'm not going anywhere. Who cares? It's kind of funny how everything is orange. You'd think that was my color. I do quite like orange, but kind of just by accident. Anyway, here's what I have so far. My notes say I am about 6 rows in. I started out with a long tail cast on and joined in the round. I don't remember why I settled on 8 increases per increase row. I think it just kind of made sense. Couldn't tell you, actually. But it seems like that's working out okay. So far, I have had a total of 3 increase rows. And my thinking, based off of what I understand, also, let's do this. So a lot of this is kind of just on the fly. So looking at the shape of this teapot, I observe that we have the narrowest point here, and then the widest point is like roughly here-ish. And so it starts out almost horizontal for a little bit, and then it slopes down, and then it slowly, the rate decreases. So here my increases need to start out pretty quickly and then even out and then slow down and be probably for a little while, because we need like a sharp edge here. We kind of want to round it out. So probably from here to here, I would imagine, I would probably try to do no increases or decreases at all. So with that in mind, I started out in the beginning cast on, long tail, which kind of works in a row with it, 1 regular knitting row, and then 2 increase rows with just lifted increases, because they seem to be hidden pretty well in this yarn. 2 increase rows at a time, start out 52 stitches, ended up 68 stitches, then did a single stockinette row, a row of increases again, and then another regular stockinette row. So I think what I'm going to do, since it seems like is working okay. I think I need to do like a total of, I think, 6 increase rows before I hit the max width. So I'm like halfway there, I guess. So I'll probably do, maybe, I'm not sure if I'm going to do another increase row next or if I'm going to wait another one, but I'm going to try to space them out in a way that makes sense considering the number of rows I want to do, so that hopefully it generally flares out at an appropriate amount. Really, this is knitting. It's going to stretch for the most part. As long as it's like generally smooth, it's probably going to be fine. It doesn't really matter. I have encountered an issue that I didn't specifically anticipate, but I have to decide what I want to do next. So my thought, at this point, it is time to break. Hang on. Can I do this? Haha. Okay. So it is already long enough that it is time to stop knitting in the round, and a space needs to be made for the handle, because the handle is higher, starts higher than the top of the teapot, or the spout of the teapot. So at first I thought, okay, that's fine, just bind off some stitches here and then knit flat right and wrong side. But as I said before, I want to do color work. And so my issue is I could steek it like I was thinking before, but if I decide to do steeking, I will have no holes to try it on as I go. I don't want to just hope that it's right, I guess. I would like to be able to try this on as it goes. The other problem is that I've never done steeking before, and I guess no time like the present. So my other option is to kind of do it like I was thinking before, except I could do my color work on the wrong side, which seems scary, or I could learn how to knit in the other direction. What this means is that I kind of am going to have to do something new regardless of what I end up choosing, I think. So that's really fun. I forgot to mention, I ended up deciding to start with the other end of the yarn than what I did the swatch with, because it's the section that has more variation in color, and I thought that would look better up at the top instead of potentially ending up where the color work is. And really, I don't know that it would really matter all that much. It does kind of blend together, but also it's kind of looking like I've got plenty of yarn to work with. So maybe it doesn't really matter either way, but that's kind of what I ended up choosing to do. So we'll see.
Well, I feel worse today. That seems to be pretty normal for me when I get sick with a cold. I'll feel bad for a couple days, I'll feel okay for a day or two, and then it'll get bad again. So I guess that's just where we are at the moment, which is really fun. But I made some progress last night and made some choices, and it seemed like a good time to stop and update on my progress. So here's where I am right now. I'm close to the top of the spout. I think it's going to be another row or two before I split that and do 2 side panels instead of 1 flat panel. So I thought now would be a good time to talk about the progress that I've made. First off, I've been really enjoying this orange yarn that I spun. I think I forgot to mention This one I spun on my double drive Ashford traditional. I've been really working on making my yarn airier and fluffier, and I really feel like I could feel a difference in knitting with this yarn. It's just so fluffy. It feels nice. A few thin, like I think there was one thin spot that I decided to reinforce with another ply, but not bad. And of course, the stitching actually looks pretty even. I think this is something I was afraid of when I started knitting with hand spun. I thought that it was going to be real uneven, but I think it's a case of do the best you can, and then the needle size helps to even it out a lot. And also, I don't know, maybe the more woolen spun yarns tend to fluff out more to fix the unevenness or something. I did rip a few rows back and redo them when I decided I didn't quite like how it was going as far as the color work goes. I was originally going to do my last row of increases, maybe about here-ish on the teapot, actually about where I am now that I think about it. But what I found, and I've never done color work in the round before with increases, but what I found is that it messes up your count, which seems obvious now that I think about it. So what I ended up doing is I ripped it back, and then I did all of the remaining 16 increases on a non-color work row about here-ish, and then that meant that my count could be accurate. And really, with the nature of knitting, knitted fabrics, it doesn't really matter all that much. It kind of warps to fit whatever, as long as the dimensions aren't too off. So I don't think it's going to be noticeable. It's just fine. It explains some of the charts that I've seen before, the way they do their increases. I guess I'm thinking of it from a sewing perspective. In knitting perspective, it stretches and warps just fine. It doesn't really matter all that much, which is kind of cool. That makes it rather forgiving. I kind of like that about knitting. So last night I wasn't sure how I wanted to approach the color work itself. I attempted to knit backwards for maybe 2 stitches, and I immediately decided this was not what I wanted to work on. Instead, I decided to do the color work on the wrong side, just the way you would normally knit. And I actually find that to work pretty well for me. I know some people hate doing color work on the wrong side, but I find that it makes the float, like I can see the floats and manage them pretty well. Ooh, there's a hair. The only thing is that the dominant color, which I normally when I'm doing color work, I just find that it works best for me to drop the one color and pick up the other as slow as it is. I find I will have trouble with the dominant color getting kind of caught up and too loose with the main color. And that's just a matter of like straightening things out, fiddling with it a little bit, like kind of checking the tension a little. It's not really a big deal, but it is slow. Not my favorite. I have tried knitting one color in both hands. It's not my favorite, and I did not like it for doing purl stitches, so I probably will continue to do it the slow way, but we'll see over time. But in any case, here's my floats. I think they look pretty even. Nothing really feels particularly tight, even though this is where I've switched to a 1x1, which is where it does tend to get too tight for me. This is hand spun, all of it, so some of the stitches, the yarn is actually just kind of thin, as opposed to like here where it's like got a slub there. But like it seems even enough for me, and also I'm sick, I don't care. Oh, I should put it on the teapot. I have to kind of stick the needles into the handle because otherwise they're in the way. So here's how far I am. It's not too halfway down the pot just yet. Maybe we're, a little over a third of the way down. Like I said, we're close to the spout, so I'm gonna have to split pretty soon. I don't have like a ton of the orange left. I think originally I felt more optimistic about the amount that I had, but that's fine. I don't think I'm gonna be doing crabs today. 1, because I probably don't have enough yarn for it, but 2, because as I'm looking at this kind of looks like a little bit like a mushroom to me. And I think I'm gonna go with it and lean into it. I'm gonna do another couple of 1x1 color rows here in an attempt to get like a transition and a little bit of like a pattern going on as far as like a shape goes. And then I'm gonna do probably white all the way down. But I'm kind of just feeling it out and seeing what happens. So it looks like a mushroom. I like it. Also, the tea is orange. Why is everything orange? Little flecks of yellowy orange, and then this is almost like a reddish rust color here. A little bit of like the darker brown section blended through. Here's a little bit of brown. It's just so pretty to look at. It was a little fiddly breaking up the colors to do this sort of arrangement, but man, I really like the way that turns out. I would love to do more planning colors this way. It's just so cool. So I guess I'm gonna do another row of color work, and then I'm gonna split up the panels. Here I am doing some color work on a pearl row. If, like me, you've never seen it done before, I don't know, maybe this will help you feel a little bit more confident for doing something like this. So, I think I mentioned before that I'll typically, if I'm doing color work, I'll often just hold the one strand and then drop it to pick up the other one. But that kind of depends on the pattern. So if I'm doing something where it's more spread out in between, it just seems like it's worth it to me to do it that way as opposed to holding it in one hand. I don't like when stitches are being pulled unevenly on each strand. I just don't like what it does to my tension. But if I'm doing like a 1x1 like I'm doing here, I will hold it in one hand, and that seems to work fine because it's drawing evenly. But I'll put the dominant color on top and I'll split it by my knuckle, generally, like so. And then it's basically just regular purl stitches. I find that my purl side does tend to have looser tension, which I think is pretty normal. It's something I try to watch for because I don't want this to get too loose. And then every few stitches, I'll kind of like check it, stretch it out, make sure it seems even enough and is like the stitches from before. That's generally how I'll do that if that's like a 1x1. And also, like on the purl row, that's really not all that scary. Like I was saying before, when you've got longer floats, you can see it. So it's not really all that bad. If you hate doing purl stitches, I can see why you wouldn't like doing this. But apparently I don't mind, so it's worth trying new things, I guess, because you never know. So I was kind of looking at this bit here for deciding what I was going to do. But I think instead of having it like exactly like this, I think here I did just 2 rows of 2x2. Here I'm doing 3, and then I'm going to have just a section, I think, of the orange underneath, like kind of like a border underneath the checks. And then I'm going to have it switch to the white with a couple of orange checks every so often. So like really just a variation on the same, but also like I said, I'm just kind of feeling it out and seeing what happens. Comparing what I have so far with the teapot, it does seem like this is long enough that I can bind off here for the spout. So I'm just going to do a quick measurement, see how many stitches wide it is at the very top. And then I'm going to just kind of loop that many stitches over each other and then just knit on this one side for a while. So I guess I'll show that to you when I have more progress. I don't think I remembered to mention what this tea was this time. This was just a an oolong with orange peel in it. Nothing particularly fancy. I think they labeled it as Formosa oolong, which actually is just normal grade oolong. It's nothing particularly special. But when you're sick, that's perfectly fine. All right, so some updates. Because we've got different size panels on the same needle, it's a little funny. Just bear with me. I can see here that my tension is not as even as it could be. I would be interesting to know if that's a knit or a purl row. I would bet that's a knit row where it's real tight. But then again, the one underneath of it is almost as tight, so what are you going to do? I noticed that down here, it's about, and if I stretch it, so it's about the way I want it to sit, but not too much. It looks like it's about time to join to a side panel. However, we do not have a side panel on the other side yet. So I think what that means is probably on this plain knit row, this is probably as far as I want to go for now, and it's probably about time to go back and knit a side panel to match this one. I ended up doing one additional decrease over here. I think it was somewhere around this side. I hadn't really mentioned it specifically before, but I kind of like a slip stitch edge. It's not something I did until relatively recently. I just think it makes like a real nice edge. And it's really easy to pick up if you're going to pick up stitches. So I like the way it looks, and that's what I chose to do. Over here at the spout, though, it starts out narrower up here at the top, and then it gradually gets wider. So far I've only done one decrease right about here. And to get that to fit with the slip stitches, I did it was on a purl side, I did two purl two together, 2 stitches away from the last stitch, so I could slip the last one as normal, and it looks normal. I think even though technically it continues to get wider, it kind of seems like it's going to stretch just fine, especially with how it is back here. It kind of wants to stretch outwards. So I don't think I need to do any more decreases down here. It's a knit. It's going to kind of just mold itself a little bit. Anyway, I think it'll probably be just fine. Soon I'm going to have to start adding stitches. I don't think I'm going to add stitches by casting on all together at the bottom. I think I'm probably going to do like another increase, probably just one down here, and then when it's time to join them, then I'll cast on a few more stitches to make up the difference. That's kind of what I have in mind. I'm just kind of feeling it out. Okay, here's what I've got so far. It's not quite done yet, but I did join the the handle side and the spout side together. So now I am back in the round. There's a little bit of fiddliness with, apparently, which I'm now learning, having not done this before, where you, when you're doing 2 panels and then joining back in the round, you kind of have to plan, apparently, to maybe like the first side you do 1 fewer row and land on like a purl side, so that when you come back around, then when you're joining, you're on the knit side. So the second one has 1 more row than the first one. I didn't do that, and so I joined in the purl side, and I thought, this isn't really working. So I did 1 extra row around, which I would have liked to have that extra row on the handle side, but I also like, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's going to work out just fine. So it's a little fiddly, but I'll keep that in mind in the future when I'm planning future projects around random objects, I suppose, where I have to do separately and then in the round again. But yeah, just did a couple make ones for the handle side, so I didn't actually have to cast on really at all. I just kind of joined them together with regular knitting. And then the spout side, I did 2 make ones to make up for the ones that were decreased here, but
I bound off four total stitches at the top, so I had to cast on 4 at the bottom. But I think that works for the shape that this is. So I think it'll round itself out as I continue around. I've continued one additional time around the pot. Well, I'm working on it now. Once I finish one time around, I think I'm going to do a round with 16 decreases. So I can do like a rapid decrease, see if it'll still comfortably fit over the pot without stretching too much. If I can get away with more decreases, I will, but I kind of anticipate that it's going to have to be wider at the bottom than the top, or else it's just not going to fit on there. So that's kind of where it is. Once again, like, I can't help but look at this and just the color that this is. It's just so cool. Oh, also, this is how much orange I have left. It's like, what, 1.5 feet or something? So this amount, that little mini skein, was perfect for this, which is kind of cool.
Here it is, finished and blocked on the pot. I chose to do a simple stretchy bind off in case I needed to pull it out. Probably anything stretchy enough to fit over the spout and the handle would do. I learned that I don't understand how to count stitches for decreasing. I kept ending up with fewer decreases than I planned to make because I forgot to count the decreased stitches as a part of the set I was counting. But the plan was to do 2 rapid decrease rows so that I would end up with a total of 70 stitches at the bottom. These yarn needles are my favorite kind. They're 3D printed from a file created by Meili Designs, and I like that the long eyelet makes weaving in short ends much easier. The needles needed a lot of filing and shaping to make them usable, so they don't snag on yarn, but that's because of the way that we printed them. I think it's worth the effort though, because I prefer them to typical metal needles most of the time.
All right, well, that wraps that one up. Overall, I feel like this was a success. I managed to do everything that I set out to do, and I feel like I learned a few things as well. This is not my first time coming up with a pattern for something, but this one is a little bit more involved than some of the other smaller, simpler things I've done before. One of the things that I learned that I did not know before, if you have something that you're starting in the round, or you have 2 panels that you're going to pick up and attach together to go in the round, in order to continue picking up in the round on the knit side, if that's what you want to do, it seems like panel 1, you want to finish it on the wrong side, so on a purl side, so that when you have the second panel and you're continuing along in the knit direction, you can pick it up the next row as a knit row, which maybe I could have anticipated that, but like, I've never done it before. So in the future, that's probably what I would have done. It caused a little bit of weirdness, and it meant that the handle portion had to be started a little bit higher than maybe it should be, but really it's knit. It's knitted. Oh, there's a dog ringing her bell. Really, it's knit fabric. It's going to stretch and mold itself a little bit. It's probably going to be fine. If anything, I anticipate it wearing the stitches on the bottom of the handle a little bit faster than if it was just a little bit longer. But if it's raw wool, I can always felt it and add to it or whatever if I feel like it. It's going to be okay. As far as changes to the design, there's a obvious gap underneath of the handle, which is just the way that I shaped it to be so that it could be taken on and off without having some sort of a button closure, which if your knuckles touch the glass part, of course it's hotter than where the wool is. And I don't know, maybe it's not the most attractive design, I guess, to just have a big old hole on the side. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't think I really care. But if I decide I do care in the future, I could pick up stitches along the side and knit like a little
a little flap to maybe either tuck in underneath or maybe attach with a button or something. But in general, I wanted to avoid buttons, so I think this is fine. I could see myself picking up stitches along the spout. I think I mentioned in the beginning that I might come up the spout a little ways, but really, when there's a cover on it, you can't see how much water you're pouring in there. So if anything, maybe I'll be less likely to overfill it because I can see how much tea is coming up the spout. This design is not intended to fully insulate the pot, of course. The big gap on the side, the spout, and the lid are all places where it's probably going to lose heat fastest, but that's fine. It's not really intended to fully insulate it, just to kind of cover it a little bit more, make it so that if I touch it, it doesn't burn my hands, and also it looks cute. That's what I care about. So I think I succeeded on the things that I set out to do. It was pretty cool to make something with some of my hand spun again. I've made some garments with hand spun, mostly small accessories, I guess. And I hope to make more things, like obviously I'd like to make a sweater out of hand spun. But it's kind of nice to just have little mini hanks in different colors that you can just pick up and use for whatever. So hopefully I can do more of that in the future. I really like that a lot. I feel a lot better than I did yesterday. Yesterday was kind of awful. And I don't know if I sound any better today, but I feel a lot better. I feel like I could probably get more things done today now if you stuck around this long. Thanks for joining me. I feel like I have more ideas for things than I would like to try that probably would be interesting to film. I have made some things with patterns, which is fine, but I really like the idea of coming up for my own designs for things. One of the cool things about making your own clothes or whatever is that you can make things exactly how you want them to be. And while I do enjoy reading through Ravelry and seeing what things I might like to make in the future, there's hardly ever been a time when I've made a pattern and made it exactly the way that they designed it, because there's almost always something I want to change. So the next step of that for me is looking at some of those designs that I would like to make that I can't quite find something that's exact match for, and just kind of having the confidence and the skills necessary to make it all on my own. So that's kind of one of the things that I would like to work on. Stay tuned for more of that, I guess. Anyway, I think I'm gonna go drink some tea and probably get back to work on the leg warmers that I put on pause while I did this one. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you maybe next time. Yes, I did take out my nose ring. I don't know what I was thinking wearing that one that had the little beaded texture on it. Not good when you have a cold. That's all I'll say about that.